BlackRock is dumping DEI, or at least that's what a few news sources are saying, in particular the Wall Street Journal, which has a pretty decent reputation for telling the truth, or at least their version of the truth. And I will say this, I want to believe it. I just don't. To me, BlackRock is one of the worst offenders in destroying this country and the future of capitalism in this country and in larger part around the world. BlackRock has been the leader here because Larry Fink is trying to acquire power through your money. If you're not familiar with what BlackRock does, they control a lot of assets, 11 trillion plus in mostly retirement, but many other investment schemes that many people buy into. And they're not alone. You have Vanguard and State Street and several others, including Blackstone, which actually, kind of looks more at the real estate portfolio side of things with real estate investment trusts and things like that. Regardless, apparently BlackRock's woke era is over, and I want to talk about it. So let's go. Now, before we get started on this pretty serious subject, I just want to remind you I'm on my way to 100K, and you can help out by double checking that you're subscribed to the channel. Whether this is your first time or your 1000th time, do take the opportunity to become subscribed. It's absolutely free, and it assures you won't miss anything, especially if you turn on the notification bell, which again, it's all absolutely free, and you might find that your contributions here will grow the channel faster, and I'll appreciate that. Let's get started on the story from BlackRock and what may or may not be as believable as we'd like. Originating from Jack Pitcher over at the Wall Street Journal, this story's from Mint, which takes premium financial stories and kind of puts them all together. If it's something you sound interested in, you can check them out. I'm not sponsored by them, but I do utilize them regularly. And according to them, BlackRock's woke era is over. This story came out on the 2nd at 4:37 in the afternoon, and I'll tell you this much, I still don't get it. I don't believe it, and you'll see why in just a moment. Asset Manager has dropped out of climate groups and eliminated diversity targets as it tries to put ESG controversy behind it, which it won't be able to. I mean, it already compromised its own entity with this garbage and tried to compromise the globe's entities with this garbage, including the bulk of the Fortune 500. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, which, they are. When BlackRock joined the UN-sponsored Climate Coalition in March of 2021, sustainability groups were thrilled. Of course they were. It meant they were going to be able to corrupt more and more corporations because, well, the weight of BlackRock was going to be behind this movement. And again, the 2020 coalition is set to coordinate itself with the Project 2030 coming out of the WEF, and I don't want any part of that either. Having the world's largest investment firm on board instantly lent credibility to the net zero asset managers, an initiative committed to support the goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Dozens of major investment managers followed BlackRock's lead, which again, more than corrupted all of the other companies that were going to be pushed into this. Now, consider this, and I'll use this as an example. Disney, who we cover here quite extensively, Dismal Disney, pretty much most of the time under Iger's leadership, is comprised primarily of a board of directors that are beholden to these asset managers. They're all kind of owned by them, for lack of a better way to describe it. And interestingly enough, they control about 16% of Disney stock, which means they are the heavyweights in the room when it comes to driving the company forward. Not just nudging them, as it's been suggested, but actually pushing them to actions that are counter to what their business needs to do. Incidentally, that's where you ended up with DEI and a lot of other nonsense ideas that have driven Disney's business into the ground and compromised its long-term future, because who wants to watch all this garbage multiple times? And that's kind of what Disney is built upon: nostalgia and a tugging of your heartstrings towards the lovely things of the past. Well, you can't do that if you're destroying the past, and Disney's almost done that completely. Anyway, BlackRock is proud to put its name behind this initiative, Chief Executive Larry Fink said at the time, back in 2021. Nearly 4 years later, Fink is distancing himself. Well, I don't know. He still wanted to force change not that long ago. NZAM got a phone call on January 9. BlackRock was out. They're done. NZAM, the net zero asset manager, they're very, very sad. Within days, the coalition was teetering, and believe it or not, I was cheering. BlackRock's departure from the coalition and its reversal this week on several diversity, equity, and inclusion policies are the latest examples of the company's retreat from advocating for issues related to environmental, social, and corporate governance factors. Because, well, they're against the fiduciary duty that BlackRock has. And incidentally, all of these asset managers have. It has been gradually walking back its ESG initiatives for years after conservatives criticized the movement as being woke. Well, it was. And legal risks grew. Of course they did, because guess what? It was illegal. BlackRock's recent actions show the reversal is almost complete, though the fallout might not be. Who cares? It won't last long, especially now that USAID is being uncovered and buried. The company has been able to maintain strong results throughout the controversy, reporting record inflows last year. Well, actually, the record inflows were because they were backpedaling from this because of a lot of this controversy that had been ginned up to expose what BlackRock was a part of. Crucially, BlackRock has remained out of the crosshairs of President Trump, who has a personal relationship with Fink, who is a Fink, by the way. Trump has publicly commended Fink for managing his money well in the past, and Fink and other BlackRock executives still have the Trump team's ear on economic issues, according to people familiar with the matter. I wonder how long that would have lasted if this had gone on and continued. Fink, one of the loudest voices on Wall Street, had spoken out about the risks of climate change for the better part of the decade. Few think he was being disingenuous when he warned that climate risk is investment risk in 2020. And it absolutely was. You took a huge risk compromising what your fiduciary duty was, and, well, look what it got you. At the end of 4 years, where did it get you? It got you, well, out of the business already. But his $11.6 trillion firm, which was eager to discuss how it could lead the environmental and social issues just a few years ago, has largely abandoned such rhetoric after a series of congressional inquiries and red state lawsuits. This is hardball politics at its best, or worst, however you want to think about it, said Mindy Luber, CEO of the sustainability nonprofit Ceres, and one of the leaders of the NZAM. Well, remember them. They're going to come into play some more here. The campaign against ESG began in earnest in 2022. No, actually, it began well before that, even before, believe it or not, BlackRock started to put these types of things in place with coordinated efforts backed by oil and gas lobbyists and Leonard Leo, a longtime leader of the Federalist Society. Oh, by the way, the oil and gas folks, especially one group, which will remain nameless for the time being, was all behind this garbage, like trying to put themselves out of business, which they couldn't possibly do because oil is used in basically everything, including plastic, and plastics is what makes the medical industry turn. So there's that. Anti-ESG groups made BlackRock and Fink the poster child for what they call woke capitalism. Well, they were. This woke capitalism thing 2 years ago, nobody had heard the term, said Luber. I still can't really tell you what it means, but it's been very effective. One would be foolish not to say that. Well, of course it was effective. We pointed out that all of this is tied to the same neo-Marxist talking points, and we can trace it all the way back to the Germany in the late 1930s at the Frankfurt Institute, which is how we ended up with all of this mess all over again. Red states have passed dozens of anti-ESG laws. More than a dozen state attorneys general have targeted BlackRock over its ESG practices because it's illegal. And the Republican-led House of Representatives has subjected large asset managers to hearings and subpoenas. And I don't think those are going to stop anytime soon. BlackRock's recent withdrawal from the Climate Coalition came one day before a deadline for it to respond to the latest House probe. It demanded information from more than 60 U.S.-based asset managers regarding their involvement in NZAM, which the House Judiciary Committee calls a woke ESG cartel, because that's what it is. It's a cartel of like-minded lawbreakers that are all out there to chase down some non-existent measures that are supposed to improve things when it comes to, I guess, breathing. Except none of those efforts can possibly change, nor does the current EPA director actually believe is a thing, and he's about to restudy it all. Good for him. BlackRock and many legal observers say the claims on which the state laws and lawsuits are centered are baseless, except they're not. You're violating fiduciary duty by targeting something that isn't profitability for your stockholders. The company settled an ESG suit with the state of Tennessee in January without admitting wrongdoing or paying any money. Well, they should have had to do one or the other, but as long as they don't do that anymore, maybe that's a good thing. Regardless of the claim's merit, the anti-ESG movement has won major concessions as BlackRock works to distance itself from the controversy. Its membership in climate groups was often cited as evidence in state lawsuits, and, well, good evidence it is. The company's PR efforts and public statements have changed markedly as well. Executives now rarely mention ESG issues because they know it's bad juju, a favorite talking point just a few years ago. Recent communications have focused on BlackRock's role as the largest steward of Americans' retirement assets and how it can play a role in helping people save and spend their nest eggs, or how they can leverage those people's nest eggs to do things that aren't within their best interest, which is the biggest problem for all of these asset managers. And probably the best evidence to maybe excuse ESG behavior by BlackRock is the fact that they don't do it anymore. BlackRock's ESG fund launches have ground to a halt. It hasn't launched an ESG exchange-traded fund in the U.S. since the first quarter of 2024, after launching 30 over the previous 5 years, according to Morningstar. Well, the fact that they're not doing it in the U.S. still isn't helpful to me, because they may still be doing it around the globe, which still means people's money could be tied into that, and maybe we need to do some more investigation. What do you think, BlackRock? You want some more scrutiny? I think the Trump administration is probably a place that could levy some intriguing investigations. The company actually took further steps to distance itself from the movement last week. The movement. The only thing they've had is rough bowel movements recently, I'll tell you that. Removing all mentions of DEI, which was previously declared a corporate priority from its latest annual report. You know who else did that recently? It's that dismal Disney company. Well, and several others as well, but I like to focus on Disney. I also like to focus on the fact that Comcast is under a big microscope right now, and I think they're going to try to walk away from any and everything that has this garbage in it. On Friday, BlackRock rushed to tell employees it was ending aspirational workforce representation goals, which are illegal, and would no longer require managers to interview a diverse slate of candidates for open positions. Oh, we're going to hire people based on their merit and not on their immutables because it's illegal. This is according to an internal memo viewed by the Wall Street Journal. Significant changes to the U.S. legal and policy environment related to DEI prompted the changes, the memo said. Oh, I bet it did. And you probably figured out that the Supreme Court is still going to be under the guidance for the next 3+ years of the Trump administration. And if something were to happen to a justice, I wonder what next justice would come in. Probably somebody that would be a little more friendly to the Trump administration's point of view. Meanwhile, sorry, I had to do it. BlackRock disclosed that it had renegotiated and removed sustainability-linked pricing metrics for a $4.4 billion credit facility it struck in 2021. Whew, that's good news if you're trying to get capital. It ended provisions that linked lending costs to whether it met targets for women in senior leadership and Black and Latino employees in the workforce, which is not only highly illegal, it was downright criminal. That kind of discrimination should put you in prison for a long, long time. The credit facility had been oft mentioned by political enemies accusing the asset manager of being woke. Accusing them of being woke, they were telling everybody they were woke. They were showing everybody how woke they were. And they were driving woke DEI, ESG, and all this other garbage as far as they could for as long as they could. And had the administration not changed, this would have been the standard operating procedure for all of these asset managers by the end of this year, if it wasn't already done already. And apparently, they lived up to it in the boardroom, because when it comes to proxy voting on behalf of its fund investors, BlackRock supported 4% of environmental and social shareholder resolutions in 2024. That's not very many, down from 40% way back in 2021, according to the responsible investment charity Share Action, probably something that was created by an NGO under that USAID money. Boy, I can't wait to get rid of all of that and disclose everything that was wasted under that as well. As a result, BlackRock's business just posted a banner year, and executives appear to have concluded that sticking the company's neck out on controversy isn't worth it. It never was, despite the proclamations of somebody like Larry Fink. Oh, and at the end here, we get a little bit of whining. ESG was conflated with being woke, said Michael Littenberg, global head of the ESG practice at law firm Ropes and Gray. Many managers have gotten smarter about addressing the backlash. Well, the fact that you exist as a practice of law is fairly ridiculous, and we need to maybe find you a new path at the law firm of Ropes and Gray. Because if we have our way, this type of stuff, ESG, DEI, and everything that was brought along with it, is going to disappear from our way of life in the Western world, and hopefully the rest of the globe as well. But hey, I've gone on and through an entire article. All I can say is this did not come soon enough, and we hope that the damage that was done can be reversed and we end up being the country that we were prior to 2008. In fact, we need to go back to that point in time and conquer some of the things that didn't get conquered from that point forward. I have a feeling that once we're through the last sets of talking points over the next 2 years, there won't be anybody out there willing to defend this era ever happened, especially in the financial asset management field. Well, whether or not that brings us even more into the golden age that we've been talking about here for the next 4, 8, 12, 16 years, I don't know. But I now have a positive outlook. But hey, audience participation time. How about you? Are you looking forward to a new BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and Blackstone free from all this ESG garbage? Are you looking forward to a return to merit-based performance and merit-based hiring? Well, and merit-based everything, since that's the way a market economy works best. I know I am, but let me know your thoughts and any other things that may have come up in your mind down in the comments section down below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.